Welcome to the Weather Farm. We have a jam-packed forecast for you as we are tracking several storms across the country, from snow to severe weather to drenching rains across the West Coast. Let's dive right into our forecast for our Wednesday morning. We see our next system spreading snow across parts of eastern Colorado into Kansas, into Iowa and Missouri. This is all going to track to the north and east on our Wednesday, bringing heavy snow to parts of northern Illinois, far northwestern Indiana, into Michigan, and then into Ontario. Across the south, we have heavy rain that has moved out of Texas, is now making its way into Arkansas and Louisiana. That will continue to move east through Mississippi and Alabama, and by Wednesday afternoon and into Wednesday night, we have the chance of a large area of severe weather across the south, and we're going to get into the details later on in this video. Out across the mid-Atlantic, that system that brought the heavy snow to places like Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland on our Tuesday, that is moving offshore. And as we turn our attention back to the West Coast, we see the first signs of the next major system to impact that region, making its way towards the California coast. By our Thursday morning, our snowmaker that has moved through the Great Lakes is now dumping heavy amounts of snow across parts of Ontario into Quebec. It is also bringing snow to Vermont, New Hampshire, and far northern Maine. Rain is stretching all the way down from New York, Massachusetts, all the way down to the Florida coast. And out west, that next system is making its way on shore. And this is bringing heavy, drenching rains to the California coast and heavy mountain snows to the Sierras. That will all move east as we get through our Thursday. But jumping back, let's put our map into motion. This is our system on our Wednesday. We see that area of snow making its way to the northeast. We are going to be concerned with some icing across Indianapolis up towards Cleveland by the time we get to Thursday morning. The icing threat ends by the time we get to Thursday, and that low continues to move to the northeast as we watch the line of storms across the south. And some of those storms, especially down along the Gulf, places like Pascagoula, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, you could be in the crosshairs for some very serious, severe weather Wednesday night and Thursday. And then out west, we watch that next system make its way onshore. In terms of potential snowfall from this system, this is through 7 a.m. on our Thursday morning. We see a wide swath of 6 to 8 inches from southeastern Nebraska, northern Kansas, into far northwestern Missouri. We also see a heavy swath of snow from northern Indiana to places like South Bend, Fort Wayne, making its way through Detroit and into Ontario. Across northwestern Illinois and through central Missouri back into Kansas, widespread 3 to 6 inches. But there is a sharp gradient to the south and east with this storm. That is because we're going to see ice making its way in with this particular system. In our ice forecast, by Thursday morning, we are going to see generally 1/10 of an inch from places like St. Louis, through Terre Haute, through Indianapolis, making its way up towards Cleveland, where we could see potentially up to 2/10 of an inch of ice with this particular system. So it's going to make treacherous travel conditions along I-70 from St. Louis through Indianapolis, and then making its way up towards Fort Wayne, towards Cleveland, along Interstate 75 and Interstate 69. This is something we are definitely going to be watching. And as we look at the southeast, as I mentioned, we're going to have severe weather. And the Storm Prediction Center has already issued a slight risk of severe weather from Louisiana through southern Mississippi into most of Alabama into far western Georgia. Marginal risk outside of that. And then you get even thunderstorms could stretch as far north as West Virginia and Oklahoma, making their way over into the Florida Panhandle. But it is this system that we're going to watch as storms move out of Louisiana and Arkansas into Mississippi and Alabama Wednesday afternoon through the overnight on Thursday. So this is at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. on Wednesday. We see that heavy rain making its way into northern Mississippi and Alabama. That's not the main threat. It's this line that's now developing through Louisiana, now making a line through Mississippi and Alabama. As we get to 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, we're going to see that line. We're going to see a lot of discrete supercells forming along this line. If they remain discrete and individualized, that's going to increase our risk. If, however, they congeal into a single line, that's going to lower the threat. And we're going to look at some skew-T analysis here because there are some things that make it marginal for tornadic and supercell development, but those things could also be just enough ingredients to where we do have those discrete supercells forming. So let's dive right into that. This is as of 5 o'clock Eastern on our Wednesday. So we see that line through Alabama down towards Mobile, making its way through southwest southern Mississippi towards New Orleans. A lot of discrete individual cells. We look at a cell here near Mobile, Alabama. This is the skew-T diagram. A surface temperature of 76, dew point of 69. CAPE values are very high. Convective inhibition is low. But the thing is, we notice that surface to 3-kilometer lapse rate. This is the rate at which temperatures are decreasing with altitude. And they are decreasing at about 7.7 degrees centigrade per kilometer. This is it's a very steep rate. It's one that also causes a lot of cooling in the column of air, which can enhance convective thunderstorms to become rotational. We also see that the storm relative helicities are from the surface up to about 1 kilometer. They're about 184. We look for values 200 and higher for that, but it's pretty close. So this is another reason why it could get tornadic. And so this is something we're just definitely going to watch. As we go to our next skew-T diagram, this is 5 hours later. So this is at 6 o'clock in the evening. We see a deeply saturated layer. Temperatures at the surface 72 degrees, dew point 7 degrees, and we see deep saturation all the way up to the 700 millibar level. We see that lapse rate has lessened. It's only 5.6 degrees centigrade per kilometer. CAPE values are relatively high for this time of the year. Convective inhibition has gone negative. We also see the storm relative helicities have now jumped to over 300. And so this is some indication, and we see shear from the surface up to about 6 kilometers. It's at a 47. So there's a lot of things. We could see some rotation. And we start to even see that up here in the upper right with our hodograph. We start to see from that red line to that yellow and out to the blue, we start to see some curls in that hodograph, which indicates that there's going to be some rotation, that the winds, as you go from the surface up to 6 kilometers, they are changing directions with height. So that gives us an indication there could be some rotation in the atmosphere. Let's take this 5 hours forward, and this is now at 11 o'clock at night. We are still seeing deep saturation up to the 700 millibar level. We are seeing temperatures, dew points 70 degrees. CAPE values at this hour of night, we've lost the heating of the day. They're still very high. Convective inhibition is negative. Storm relative helicities, high values. So we are going to be on watch for a period of 10 to 12 hours where we could see severe weather across parts of southern Mississippi into southern Alabama, which could spawn tornadoes, straight line winds, damaging hail. So this is a very active situation that we're going to be watching. But in terms of precipitation, through Wednesday afternoon, we're going to see rains as they come out of Texas, over an inch of rain into northern Louisiana, 2 to 3 inches widespread. This is on top of the 1 to 2 inches you saw earlier in the week. If we get through central Mississippi, another 2 to 3 inches. We could see an isolated 4 to 5 inch amount here as we see down here in the yellow as we move a little bit further north and east. We see that heavy rain stretching into northern Alabama. But the 1 to 2 inch amounts, they stretch all the way up towards Knoxville, Tennessee, over towards Atlanta, Georgia. And this is just through Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock. We're still waiting for all of this rain to continue to pivot eastward through Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. So the amounts are only going to increase. It's another reason we do believe that there will be some flash flooding concerns across the deep south as we go into our Wednesday and Thursday. In fact, we can already see that. We see widespread flash flood watches and warnings being issued from northern Louisiana through Mississippi. I expect these to be issued across northern Alabama. They're already for northwestern and north central Georgia, into Tennessee, and to far southeastern Kentucky. Where we see to the north and west, those are your winter storm warnings. That's where your snow and your ice are going to be concentrated for our Wednesday. And as this area of low pressure makes its way into the northeast for our Thursday morning, it's going to bring heavy snow to Ontario, to Quebec. And on the southeast side of that, we're going to see primarily warmer temperatures with these red 500 millibar contour heights showing warm air advection up into the northeast to New York, to Massachusetts. But across far northern New England, parts like northern Maine, we're going to remain all snow. And that snow is going to pile up. By the time we get to Thursday night, we could see excess of 5 to 10 inches of snow across north central Maine. The higher mountain elevations of New York, excess of 8 inches, but a widespread 3 to 6 inches across northern New England. But the main bullseye, again, is going to be across parts of Ontario into Quebec, where we could see 12 to 24 inches of snow widespread, isolated amounts greater than 2 feet of snow. Our other big story on our Thursday is going to be the rain and the system that moves onshore from California. As we've mentioned all week, it's going to dump torrential rains for the California coast, 2 to 3 inches, isolated 4-inch amount here along the coast. As we get into the mountains, it's going to be heavy mountain snows. But we're also watching down towards Los Angeles. Half an inch of rain to 1 inch of rain is likely. We are going to be on the watch for mudslides for our Thursday into Friday morning. And so we see that system continue to make its way east as we get towards Friday, moving the snow through Nevada, Utah, and into western Colorado. And in terms of that snowfall, by the time it's all said and done, as we get to Friday morning, we're going to see amounts in excess of 70, 80, 90, potentially 100 inches of snow in those highest elevations. Around the Four Corners region, down towards places like Ouray, Colorado, we could see 6 to 12 inches of snow. In parts of southwestern Wyoming, we could see up to 5 inches of snow. Through Idaho into eastern Oregon, heavy snow in those mountains. And so this is a system that's going to bring a lot of moisture with it as it makes its way onshore Thursday and then traverses the Intermountain West for our Friday. And after we get through our Friday, our attention is going to go back down towards Texas. As we see this blue, that's going to be an indication that there's going to be a lot of Gulf moisture being pumped up into the Ohio Valley by the time we get to Saturday. And that's going to set the genesis for our next weather system. And we see it here now for Saturday morning. We have widespread rain, thunderstorms through Tennessee, Kentucky, making their way up to Cincinnati. Heavy snow has moved through Ohio into western Pennsylvania, through Michigan, back up into Ontario. So let's put all of this in motion. We watch that system make its way out of the Intermountain West on our Friday. The Gulf moisture starts to get pumped up from the south. We see rain developing. We see an area of low pressure that's going to ignite all of this. It deepens. And by the time we get to Sunday, Saturday evening, Sunday, we could see thunderstorms through Indiana. And that low is going to continue to deepen as it moves east through Ohio into Pennsylvania. And it's going to become a major winter event for the Northeast by the time we get to our Sunday. And that system is going to be the latest in a series of systems that is going to continue to make their way across the United States over the next week. In fact, for the eastern half of the United States, we are going to kind of retreat back into that pattern we saw for January, with much below normal temperatures across the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, making their way to the Northeast, whereas the West Coast is going to be above normal temperatures. Precipitation is going to be greatest above normal along the southern states. We will see below normal precipitations from the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes all the way through the Central Plains back out to California. So that rain that you're getting right now in the upcoming days in California, that's going to be beneficial rains, and it's going to serve you for a while because we do see you going below normal in precipitation by the time we move towards the end of February. And the other big story that we have is the risk of heavy snow. So the National Weather Service has already issued a slight risk of heavy snow somewhere from Arkansas through Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and up to the Northeast. That system, wherever it develops, is then going to move into the Northeast by the time we get to the 20th and 21st. So by the time we get to next Wednesday, we're going to be watching yet another major winter weather system making its way out of Oklahoma and Texas, making its turn in through the Tennessee Valley or the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast. This is going to be, at this point, storm number 5, potentially storm number 6, since we started counting earlier this week. So the pattern shows no sign of letting up. Temperatures are going to be very cold across the eastern half of the United States. It's going to likely support heavy snow in certain areas. We thank you for joining us here at the Weather Farm on this Wednesday morning. We hope you have an excellent day. Stay safe. If you are in the path of the ice or the heavy snow, make sure you have a plan if you are traveling and you do get stranded. Like, subscribe, share this video with a friend. Let them know where you get your weather information, and we'll see you again real soon.